You can fix bad marketing. You can't fix a bad marketing.
There are the four pillars of a brand: branding, marketing, positioning, and
The mid-influencer will suffer if they don't bring their rates down because they're outpricing themselves.
Duolingo is doing awesome in this category.
I think growth will get you short-term gains, but it does not build a brand. Indian consumers are really hyper aware of where their money is going. Every time there's a transaction coming in,
What?
Trip on that.
Pay anyone with your credit card.
you have to drive that purchase moment again.
Who is the most impressive person you have ever met? Welcome to Beyond the Script, Tara.
Thanks for having me. We've been talking about this podcast for so long. I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Really, I mean, I'm glad that you came up, like you were coming from Mumbai and then coming from a podcast. That's a really happy moment for me. I have seen like Duolingo as a product when I was building Quick Reel. So one of the products that I keep inspiring, we will take inspiration from that and all. So I'm pretty glad and really excited to have a conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we will start with a small question out there. Everyone knows Tara as a India market lead of Duolingo English Test, but I just want to know the little Tara. So little Tara coming from a small town and have done her journalism from DU. I just want to know who was that little Tara. Take us through your smallest journey when you born up. How was your early childhood? How was your parenting? And
Yeah, I think I love that you say it in that way because I'm the youngest of my family from my cousins, siblings, all of that. So youngest sister, youngest cousin, youngest grandchild, so I've been the baby of my family when I was a kid. And now, given how old I am, it's a bit strange to say I was the baby of the family, but now that everyone's had kids and those kind of things. But I think that meant that I was pretty pampered as a child. I had a lot of people looking after me, looking out for me. We moved a lot when I was a kid. My grandfather was, in the army. My dad used to work at a bank, and we moved a lot basis his job. So I grew up in Bombay, I grew up in Chennai, I grew up in Delhi, grew up in Dubai. So my childhood was all over the place, and then I went to boarding school at the age of 12. And then I graduated from boarding school, which was in Missouri. And for me, that, mountain life was really something that I valued in my childhood, just being with nature, being with a bunch of kids who are all growing up together. My strongest friendships, you were talking about how you founded this company with a school friend, and some of my closest friends are from school, and, we've built those bonds. After that, I went to DU, like you said, and I was an English major. And it's interesting because I was an English major and now I'm running an English test, so the dots do connect sometimes in life. But from an English major, I really wanted to be a journalist, so, and in my mind, being a journalist meant, breaking news, grassroots documentary storytelling, really deeply understanding what's happening. And it was very idealistic, in all honesty. And I went to then journalism school in Chennai. I went to Asian College of Journalism. But it's very hard to pursue that vision that I had in my childhood in real life. I got a job in a business news channel. Business news, you will know this well, is not at all, the kind of storytelling I was talking about from the grassroots. And eventually kind of pivoted in my journey. But what I realized is all of the things that I liked as a child are what I like in my job today, right? So marketing to me is still storytelling. I think really understanding what's happening on the grassroots is understanding consumer behavior and insights. And I feel like storytelling is what drives the best marketing. So that vision that I had as a kid of what I wanted journalism to be is kind of what I found through marketing, which is interesting.
Interesting. I can also relate. Like one of our first podcasts was with a journalist, Shweta Kothari. She's a senior editor at TV9.
Amazing.
So we had a very great conversation around the journalism and all. And definitely when I went through back of the journalism industry, it's really glad to see how that industry really works. So yeah, now coming to the next question. So Tara, there are the four pillars of a brand: branding, marketing, positioning, and then sales. Tell us what it mean, and give us an example of that.
Yeah, so it's a good question, and I think I can explain it through. Let's look at sneakers as the example that I want to use, and we can look at Nike as the brand. I think everyone, at the end of the day, when you think of Jordans or you think of the Nike running shoes or any shoe out there, you know them end to end. But at the end of the day, it's a shoe, right? So I think that's branding for you, right? The fact that you want to buy brand Nike over any other sneaker. A sneaker is a utility product, right? When you think of it, why do you wear sneakers? You wear it to go to the gym, to go for a run, to go for a walk. But Nike's made you want to buy that brand in particular, right? So that's branding for you. You then look at positioning. What is the position that Nike's taken? They've said anyone can be an athlete. That's their line. That's the dialogue that they've taken, saying any person can just do it. You have to truly believe that you're an athlete, no matter whether you're a housewife, you're a person that's never been to the gym before, or you're actually a Serena Williams or any other of the top athletes that they have out there, right? So that's sort of how they've positioned their product. They want everyone to feel great. They want everyone to feel athletic and to live their best life. You then look at sort of how they put themselves out in stores, right? Like when you run sales and discounts and you run performance-led campaigns, those have clear bottom line sale volume goals. That's the sales part of it, right? Because you're really trying to drive the purchase, and you find any hook, whether it's a discount or any other policy that they have to drive that. And I mean, marketing is all of it together, right? Like marketing is sort of what puts it into shape. So I would say marketing is the overarching part of all of the other pieces that you've spoken about.
Got it, got it. So we can say like branding is something which really says like what kind of brand it is. For example, a Nike, they have a product called their sneakers, right? But they have made it like this is not just a shoe. This is something that if you wear, you are different.
Yep.
Yeah, you can do it.
Yep.
So we can say like branding makes the feel of the brand, right? Like if you wear that, how you gonna feel, and how you gonna look into the market, right?
I think everything's also interconnected, right? Yeah. So technically, branding is ultimately the packaging. It's sort of how it makes how the outside skeleton looks, right? Positioning is how it makes you feel, but branding and positioning has to work together.
Got it, got it, got it. Now, Tara, I have seen some of the great product fails just because of bad marketing, and some of the bad product get huge success just because of the good marketing. What's your opinion about that, and what do you think which is more important? It is a good marketing or is it a good product?
I would say by far having a good product is the more critical part. The reason I say that is you can fix bad marketing. You can't fix a bad product, right? So you need to have a product that matters to consumers, and eventually everything else will follow, right? It's very difficult. Like there's that old saying that goes, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. The taking the horse to the water is the marketing side. The making it drink is the product itself, right? So there's only so much marketing can do if you have a crappy product. So I would say product by far has to define what's driving consumer purchase.
Got it, got it. In the past, like few decades, I have seen marketing has evolved a lot. But when I talk with some old brands, right, their major part of their marketing budget goes into traditional prints, TV ads, and some of them are performance ads. Okay, but now the marketing era or the marketing scenario is moving towards organic content. So I just want to ask you one thing, like why they are spending, and before just spending out, I want to show you one thing also. Uh, we will cut it out, but I want to show you this.
That ICICI one.
Yeah, the ICICI one video. Let me show you.
वैल्यू फंड्स इसमें
This is a video by ICICI
इसमें
Mutual
ऐसा
Fund.
क्या है सोचिए
Okay,
सुपरमार्केट नहीं
and it
12
have
likes, yeah.
12 likes, 124
Yeah.
million views, and 0 comments.
Yeah.
Tell me why these brands still do these kinds of stuff, and are they chasing just views, or they just have to, I mean, complete their vanity metrics and all? Like, why brands are doing this? And yeah, just want to know from you.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think it's just vanity metrics, right? I think there's a purpose to this kind of marketing. And think of it from the perspective of ads that play on TV. In my mind, this is an example of somebody who's decided not to spend their budget on TV, but use digital as their TV screen. This is a pure awareness play, right? What will happen is this ad will play at X frequency on any YouTube video out there. They'll probably do an unskippable ad so that people have to watch the whole video. And they've spent a lot of media money on driving reach to make sure as many eyeballs as possible see that content. They don't care about engagement in this case. They want awareness. And I don't know what the results will be out of this, right? Because that also depends on the final output of the creative, etc. But what you're seeing as a behavior shift here is marketers are spending way less on TV than they used to, and they're using digital in the same way that they would use TV. The unfortunate part about these kind of examples is that ideally you can do both when it comes to digital. You can drive reach and engage as well as engagement, right? So what they've missed out here is they focused only on the reach metric and not on the engagement side, which is what drives questions on digital. And I think the brands that are the most successful are the ones that marry that really well. Having said that, this could have hit all of the goals and objectives that the brand has. I don't know what the thinking was behind it, but there is that shift of being like, hey, I will spend 0 on TV, but I will make YouTube my new TV screen, which is sort of the change of behavior that is, pretty common now.
According to my research, they have spent around $3 million to $10 million just to boost this post. If Tara was a marketing person there, would she do the same? Or if I give you that kind of money, what would you do with that?
I mean, I think there are different opinions on how that's done, right? Like, I think the challenge is those same budgets are spent on IPL, on a large-scale TV campaign, on KBC, on Big Boss, on any of these large properties that you have. So in terms of the sum itself, people spend that kind of money, and you need to spend that kind of money to create pan-India awareness, right? We're talking about a hugely dynamic, diverse country, and to reach that population, you do need to spend pretty sizable budgets. Think of Cred, right? They were, what the news was saying, 100 crore to spend on that whole IPL campaign that they did. But they did it successfully, right? They achieved the goals that they were trying to hit from a marketing perspective. A marketer's job is to spend money. But you need to spend it correctly, right? So I'm not questioning the amount, but I do think they could have possibly diversified. I do think they could have used YouTube as a platform slightly more effectively to drive the engagement metrics that you were talking about. It shouldn't have just been one way, even if that was the goal of the brand. If I was in the brand manager's place, maybe I would have done something differently, but I don't know what goal or what metric they were chasing, right? So in my mind, it would be maybe create something a little more holistic, diversify your touch points, and then try and utilize the platform that you've prioritized in the best way possible.
Just I want to add one thing. As you mentioned, like these brands still treating these platforms like a TV or TV ads and all. These brands are just putting those TV ads just on the digital platform and then boosting it. I think this is happening just because the people who are sitting at that position are not aware of these kinds of platforms. So if I say as a Gen Z or as a new person, if I would be there, I would have spent some time on the researching about the platform, because these platform doesn't work like earlier TV used to do, right? These platform have their own algorithm. People really comes out on these platform with a different mindset. They do not come like they are just watching a TV. They see 10 different other videos out there, and then they click on one, and then they spend some time on that, and some of the people spend more time on that. So with that psychology, if you create content, then it would become much more effective and engaging. That I think on my personal note. So if these brands who are kind of a legacy brands or traditional brands, if they start working on this angle, they could have get a much better result. That I personally think. Now we are talking about lot traditional and all. I just want to take this conversation to the next point of the angle, which is new organic content. I have seen Duolingo English Test does a lot of organic content, and you are one of the face behind that. What's your take on in the next 10 decades how the marketing will look, and what role of this organic content will contribute this whole marketing world?
Yeah, I mean, I think organic content will always be important, right? Because it's what you said, that's how behavior is on digital, right? People want tips, they want insights, they want information that's useful for them. They don't want to be told buy this soap or buy this product, right? They want to know why this soap is useful or what makes this soap better than the other one, right? They want sort of more in-depth insights and information, and organic content serves that purpose. But I think the challenge for organic content is you also are investing your money and budget, and you need to reach a wider audience, right? And especially for brands, like for example, for the Duolingo English Test, we're a pretty small brand, right? Like where we reach a very niche audience. But what we've invested along with building content is building community. Because unless you have a community, your content is not going to reach anybody out there. So we've invested a lot on community, both offline and online. So think of growing, we were literally talking about it before this conversation, building a YouTube community or building an Instagram community. I think that's one aspect that we focus on. The second is actual physical community, where people meet in person, where you're building authentic experiences for people. And we've realized that for a product like ours, which is supposed to be extremely transactional, we've actually been able to create a sense of brand love for the students that use our product. So I would say organic and community working together are the critical pieces of that puzzle.
Cool. Like I'm into the creator economy for last 5 years, and I work with creator very closely. And when I see how much money they make, it's a lot more than a founder, or maybe you will be earning. But there's a lot of brands who are spending a lot of money out there into the influencer marketing. What's your take on that? And are these brands get ROI? I know the answer would be like it depends brand to brand. But according to you, if you are doing influencer marketing in a correct way, choosing right influencer and all, is it really good ROI? And if Tara is doing it, how she do it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because this is something we've been thinking a lot about, right? The world of influencer marketing is shifting. And I think what's going to happen is the folks in the middle are the ones who are going to suffer the most. The bigger influencers are going to become much more like brand ambassadors. So they will start moving much more in the celebrity category. So you will see the likes of, Kusha Kapila, Dolly, etc., becoming brand ambassadors. That's different from influencer marketing. And then you will see the role of overall influencer marketing shifting to the micro influencers, the real, like the small influencers, but who have really created these sharp communities, which might be, 10, 20, 30,000 followers, but it's a super niche targeted audience that they speak to. and that will happen at volume. So right now what happens is that, typically a brand will be like, hey, I want 100 influencers to go live at one time, and it'll be across all of these categories. You can no longer afford that because influencers themselves have become super expensive, particularly in the mid and large categories. Large category, like I said, will shift into replacing potentially celebrities in some cases. The mid influencer will suffer if they don't bring their rates down because they're outpricing themselves. And unless they grow into the large influencer category, it's not going to see the same ROI that it used to see because algorithms are shifting, their reach is going down, their communities are not growing as much because of those algorithm shifts. So that's kind of how I think influencer marketing is going to change. The things that we're doing, like I said, we're trying to build our own community. That's one way that we engage. The second is I'm looking to make influencers into longer term brand ambassadors. So instead of continually swapping people out and like doing, fresh negotiation every video you want to do, how do they become advocates for your brand over a longer period of time? It builds credibility both for them but for the brand as well. So I think those are some of the shifts that at least I see on the influencer marketing side.
No, I mean, great strategy. Like, rather than renting out those influencers or renting out those small time ice ball. I mean, if a brand is building a long-term community or a long-term relationship with this creator, and like where people are promoting their brands without knowing them, I think that's the real win of this whole influencer marketing game. And I think the game is going to change a lot. Like right now, we are seeing there is a brand, there is an agency, and then there is a creator. Brand pour money, agency take, and then creator.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think it is going to be more on a creative side, like rather than just of a single ad and all. Like I think Acer or Asus done recently with Rashamani. They have made Rashamani as their brand ambassador. So the thing that you have mentioned, like building them as a brand ambassador, is a great strategy that we are going to see a lot into the near future.
I also think that, the world has changed from where people assume influencers is organically plugging the product, like that world has changed, right? Like everyone knows that if there's a brand in the video, there's money associated. So I feel like both brand and influencer needs to own that a little more, right? Like nobody minds that this is actually a paid promotion, but own that. Don't try and fool the consumer. And I think that authenticity will also benefit everybody. It'll benefit the influencer as well as the consumer as well as the brand. So those shifts will happen.
Yeah, I remember one quote of Tanmay Bhatt, like he had mentioned that in one of the podcasts, like, ठीक है बेच रहे हो बेचो, but मेरे को अच्छे से बेचो.
Exactly, that is the point.
Yeah, मुझे पता है बेच रहे हो, but मेरे को अच्छे से बेचो.
Exactly.
Tara, because I am from this creator economy, I will ask like more of the content questions. So please help me with that. So one of the trend that I recently saw, Tara, is whatever campaign or whatever content, whatever you are doing, which is shareable, get the more eyeballs and get more success. I can give you an example. Okay, Coldplay tickets. Okay, people were buying those tickets just they can share those Coldplay stories.
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
second example, High Rocks. People were just in the line to get into the High Rocks just because after that they can share that on stories. Now we have seen this trends into the multiple things out there like YouTube recap, Spotify Wrapped, and now I can see that with the Duolingo English Test. Like on LinkedIn, I saw a lot of people are posting about their streaks and all.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this marketing strategy and this trend about like creating something which is shareable?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is consumer behavior, right? Like we got the Starbucks cup, they do the Christmas cup and everyone will share that, on their stories. These are things that's where consumer behavior has moved, right? Like we want to share our lives with people. We want to associate with brands and events that we feel are cool or where consumer behavior is shifting, right? So I know a lot of people were angry that there were people at the Coldplay concert who didn't know Coldplay songs. But for me as a marketer, I was actually really excited by that. I was excited that we're seeing such a movement for globalization to happen in this country. And the fact that people who might have never heard a Coldplay song are being able to attend a concert in their country, in their city, that's exciting. That showcases where this country can go, and how we can be a part of larger global movements, right? I remember when I was young, nobody used to come and perform in India. They said the Indian consumer doesn't spend, doesn't buy. And I think we've proved that we do have that behavior. And you just have to get the Indian consumer excited. And you have to give them the right opportunity for what they're going to share about, right? People used to talk about Indians not caring about fitness, and look at what happened with Hydrox, right? So I find it actually really exciting. And I think that we need to create those shareable moments for consumers. At the DT, we try and do that, right? We were talking about the student ambassador program earlier that you were seeing all over LinkedIn. There's a badge that comes with saying, "Hey, I've been selected for something, and I will show it off. I'm being able to benefit other students because I've gone through this journey." There's a level of pride that comes with that. Nobody thought a proficiency test would be something that people will wear as a badge of honor. But our community is really excited to be a part of it because we've given them something that they can associate with. And I think that's what brands need to think about. I think there's a big shift towards creating experience, creating shareable opportunities, and making people feel a part of something. You went to Coldplay because you felt like you were a part of something iconic happening in your city. It didn't matter whether you knew the lyrics to a song or not. Yes, I would have liked it if people were more engaged in the live experience versus selfies, but overall, I think it was great to see that shift in the country.
I think like Duolingo has cracked that out because in our friend circle or in my friend circle, I have seen like we show like this is our streak, this is our how we are doing. Whoop is also doing good in this. Like in Whoop, you get a in their app you get like how many streaks you have done of your fitness, how much recovery you have done,
Yep.
it all. So I think this is a very critical thing. If a brand like adapting it, they will see like they are building a community. Like this is one of the way to build a community. Now, Tara, we have seen Indian, and we were just talking to the last question. We have seen Indians as a non-paying subscription users. Okay, well, Indian often don't pay for subscriptions. What do you think about that? Because Duolingo is doing awesome in this category. Now, just before you answer that, I will like to add one thing. China was facing the same problem. I was in China in last few months, and I have seen they have the same problem. But they have solved this problem by not focusing just on getting the subscription model on just the face of their users. They implemented two new models, which is pay per use. When you want to use it, pay for it. And the second is ad revenue. So I was sitting down into the ByteDance office and I was just talking with their team and all. They said it clear to me. Like subscription model doesn't work to us. They have an application called Doing, which is the alternative of TikTok there. And on that platform, you see a short drama series. And you see by just paying for this particular drama. And similar with other application and all, they have like, if you want to use it, pay it now and then use it. So how do you see like this as a Indian market? Like we are too much on focusing on just and renting about ki subscription le nahi rahe. Should we focus on other model also? Or is there any opportunity into subscription model?
I think that's a great question, and there's a lot that India can learn from China in terms of the subscription models that exist and how consumer behavior is quite similar across these countries. I think the piece is that Indian consumers are very value for money driven, right? You value every rupee that you're spending, no matter what income bracket you're from. And with subscription models, it's very difficult to see the shift in value besides the inconvenience of an ad that's interrupting when you're watching TV. That anyway happens when you're watching television. So why would it bother me if I'm watching YouTube when I get to access that for free? It's very hard to justify the subscription payment. I think the example where it could possibly work, and I'm not sure if it actually is the case because I don't work at the company, would be a company like Spotify or any music-driven platforms where the ads actually interrupt your listening experience, right? It disrupts something that should feel more seamless. And maybe that's a space where people would be willing to pay a little more. I think the pay-per-play model, the freemium models could work better when you think of subscription. But I do think that markets like India and China are more about volume and getting new users into the ecosystem versus actually trying to drive revenue through subscription models. Um, I think the ad model is actually what works better in countries like this because think about it. We're a country that's used to inconvenience. Like it happens to us every day. We're immune to it. So an ad, like paying a large amount of money because of an ad interruption is a very small inconvenience compared to the stuff that we deal with on a daily basis, right? So I think the part that I want to correct that people assume about Indian consumers is that Indian consumers do not spend money. It is not the same thing. Like the willingness to pay for subscription is not the same thing as not being willing to pay for things. And that disparity is what a lot of brands can't understand. But yeah, it's what makes our jobs harder. It's what makes it more interesting because we have such a diverse consumer pool in this country.
Yeah, definitely. Like you have mentioned the point really correctly because like at Quakereel also we have a subscription model. Definitely, like Indian user definitely pay. Like this is one of the biggest misconception I have heard from everyone. Like everyone says like Indian consumer do not pay, but they really pay. But on a subscription model, they are not very sticky.
Yeah.
The retention rate is not that good if you see it in US or maybe in other Western countries. So, I mean, these kinds of models really help for a brand to get more their foot into these kinds of market. And one of the good point that you have mentioned is these countries like India and China are more to get more eyeballs or more get viewership rather than revenue scale if you look at from a very larger perspective.
The other thing that I'll add here, which I found really interesting, is if you look at like the way mobile data plans work, people will spend for 10 rupee top ups, 40, 50 rupees, like small ticket size top ups. But when you add that all together, they're spending probably more than people spend on a monthly basis. But that is the comfort level of paying when you have the need versus just paying blindly. I think the other part is that what you were talking about in terms of stickiness, Indian consumers are really hyper aware of where their money is going, right? It's your larger Western consumers that sometimes, will blindly sign up for plans and just let those monthly annual subscriptions keep on going on for products that they probably don't use on a, they're probably not using it for most of that time. Indian consumers will wait. They'll say, I want to wait till there's 10 shows that I want to watch on Netflix, and then I will watch that in that 1 month, and I will pay for that 1 month. The next month, I will watch the 10 shows on Apple TV, and the month after that on Amazon Prime. I don't have to watch it the second it releases, but I see value in that subscription when I've got enough content to watch. That behavior, I think it's actually very well planned, and people spend that time and effort versus other consumers where they're okay to just blanket let their money go across all of these plans, right? So it's a very unique behavioral pattern. It doesn't mean they don't want to watch the content, or it's just you have to every month work to make them sign up again. It's a fresh sign up every single month. Every time there's a transaction coming in, you have to drive that purchase moment again.
Right, like this, the best example of this you have mentioned like mobile data. Most of the Indian consumers are prepaid plan users, right? Not a postpaid plan user.
Exactly.
Because we want to pay money and get the value out of it rather than just subscribing for something and then paying money month by month. Tara, we are moving towards the next set of questions, and we will change the little vibe here. Nikhil Kamath recently said, if a 25-year-old doing an MBA right now, he's an idiot. Okay, I just want to know your perspective on it, and like because there is so much of noise going on, like should someone do an MBA or not? My parents really said me to do MBA after just launching my company also. So what do you think? Like, is it still worth or not?
So I have many thoughts that come out of this question, primarily because I also work in the education sector right now. I think the number one piece is that I think it's really dependent on you, right? An MBA, what you pursue, is very much an individual decision. For example, I didn't get an MBA and I'm doing fine. I've been able to pursue a career, do pretty well without an MBA. And at this stage, I can say I don't think I need one, right? But my husband, on the other hand, has done an MBA. He works in finance. He's in a career where an MBA is a critical part of how he progresses in his career. There's many companies where they will not hire you if you don't have an MBA, and that's the reality that we still exist in, right? That doesn't mean you can't be successful without an MBA. You 100% can, and I think that's the point he's trying to make. The second piece, which I think is a little more critical of the education sector, is, and this is, I think, where he was coming from, is that right now an MBA isn't skilling you necessarily with where the world is going, right? With AI adoption, with the way technology moves, the way subscription model businesses are moving, consumer tech is moving, etc. It's a very different world from what's being taught in your MBA textbooks. So if MBAs don't evolve in terms of the course material, in terms of what you learn, in terms of the teaching patterns that teachers have, then yeah, maybe the content itself is not going to be relevant in 5-10 years from now. That doesn't mean you're an idiot for getting an MBA. It's a completely different argument. I think sometimes lines are taken and built into made into clickbait, and that's how the internet is. But I think that the movement towards needing education to keep pace with technology is definitely something that people need to think more about.
Interesting. Tara, I mean, this is one of the most interesting questions that I had in my mind just before calling you on the podcast. Is, can you tell me name of a brand whose marketing you really loved? And I will say you won't take the name of Nike or Cred because you have already taken their names.
Yeah, fair.
I just want to know some new age company out there. Not it should not be very famous or very big, but you love like how they are doing marketing.
So if you're saying new age, I think Mokubara has been very interesting in terms of how they've built out their brand for luggage. I think in terms of what I like with marketing, typically is I like brands that have built legacy, right? So I would have used all of the cliched examples that you were talking about. Like I would have said Apple, I would have said Nike, I would have said Netflix. And I think there's several reasons why I would have picked those brands. It's because they've all been disruptors at some point in, when their brands have kind of come into play. But they've also stayed true to their brand and they've invested in brand. What I like about Mokubara is that they invested in design, they've invested in a good product, and then they've really built a category that stands out from all the other luggage out there. They've made you value spending more money on your suitcase, which a lot of people just look at as a transactional product that I need to take from point A to point B. It became a fashion accessory, which I thought was interesting, right? And then they also targeted younger people. They brought in all the colors. They made you want to keep upgrading your suitcase, right? Which I thought was interesting. And then beyond that, I thought they did some really interesting brand partnerships. So I do think brand partnerships is now a very interesting space that exists in marketing. And they did some pretty cool collabs. I think they did something with Diljit at a concert, and then they did something. They did an Indigo. I mean, Indigo is going through what it is right now, but they did a very cool Indigo partnership at an earlier time. So yeah, I've kind of liked how they've built out their brand as well as their product.
And one brand that you think can do much more in marketing, like they need more efforts into the marketing, like one of the brands that you would like to mention. The product is very nice, but
that's a hard one. But I would say that what I see with a lot of brands these days is they don't prioritize the brand side of marketing. They only look at the growth side of marketing. So there's been this whole redefinition that, oh my God, we don't need CMOs, we need CGOs, or we need like growth, like chief growth officers versus a chief marketing officer, right? And um, I think growth will get you short-term gains, but it does not build a brand. Uh, I'm not naming any brands because there's too many of them, right? It's this whole slew of new age startups that are not investing enough on building the brand. They think brand will come later. Brand needs to come at the same time that you're investing in growth. Because if you don't build brand at the same time, people are going to know who you are. They might purchase, but they're not going to come back and build loyalty. So I think that any brand that thinks growth is more important than marketing needs to make sure that's going more hand in hand.
Yeah. One thing I would like to mention, like I asked you question about the brands that you really love the marketing. I would also like to mention two brands. I do not know you know the name of one or not. The second is one is very legacy company. So first one I would like to mention the style application that came out.
Yep.
Very young guy sitting in New York, just creating reels from his mobile phone, and he have made a very loud noise. And when I really realized like his marketing tactics really worked, I was sitting with some investor in Bangalore, and she literally mentioned that application. And from reaching from that small room in New York to coming out from an investor name and sitting in Bangalore, I think they have really nailed at what they really want to do. So they have really done really good. Now the second brand I would like to mention is Zerodha. What they are doing right now with the YouTube.
Yep.
They are building more than like 150 plus
100%.
IPs, right? And when I see their vision, like they want to control the whole narrative.
Yeah, it's a great example.
Yeah.
Excellent example.
So I mean, they know like in the next 3 to 5 years how the behavior of the audience is gonna be, and where they are gonna spend most of the time, who's their audience gonna be, and they want to hold on them from the starting. So very great example. Now coming up to the next question, and I'm very excited to ask you this. Let's say if you have to make $1 million in next 6 months, how would you make it?
I wouldn't. It's kind of my answer. I think the reason I'm saying this is that I know why you're asking me this question, right? Like, I think it's everyone's dream to be able to make money fast and quick, right? But I think that I'm my outlook and approach towards making money is a lot more about longevity than short-term gains, right? It's sort of how do you create impact that's going to keep compounding for you and eventually hit your goal towards your retirement, right? I don't think I'm built as a person who's going to become a multimillionaire or a celebrity or any of that, but do I think that I can up level and live a life that I'm comfortable with for my future? That for me is the goal.
But you are a celebrity on the marketing space, really.
No,
like
but I'm
a
saying
lot
that
of people
there's a
really
level of
get
comfort
inspired.
that you can sort of build without chasing just money. And I think the challenge with chasing things quickly means you have to compromise somewhere, right? So the example I'll give is when you'll know this really well, right? And anyone in your team here from a content perspective is when typically when a marketer asks you for something, there'll be three things that they want, right? They want it quickly, they want it done cheap, and they want high quality, right? You will never be able to get all three in the same piece. And I feel the same way about making money. If you want money fast and you want to do it with integrity and with quality, or you don't want to compromise on something that you're looking at, what are you going to let go of, right? Like fast and whatever the cheap part is like not working in this analogy, but my point on it is that like you're sort of like, how are you building, what are you sacrificing to make that happen? I'm also saying this as a person who has pretty low risk appetite, right? So I'd rather make my salary, invest my money, watch that compound for me, figure out where else I can invest it, and make short-term gains that will eventually add up long-term. And what I will say is by just following that kind of a route, I have been able to develop some sort of a safety security net for myself. The piece that I will add here, though, is that I wish I had learned this earlier. I wish I'd started this much earlier in my career where you saved more money and you followed the principles of how to invest money much earlier on, like investing in the stock market, looking at property or whatever as opportunities. I think that some of those old school ways of saving still count and still matter, and eventually will add up. So I'm not doing a good job of answering this question, but that's sort of how I see it.
No. I think we should have to do one more podcast on this thing, on finance, because I am totally opposite. Like, I really love to risk. I do not like to save and all. But if someone is telling on a different perspective, I would love to have a conversation around that. Maybe someday we will sit down. But yeah, definitely interesting answer. Like, a lot of people gave me answer this question in a very different way. Like, we will do this and do this and do this. But the way you explain, like, if you are chasing towards that, then you have to sacrifice one
Something
thing.
you might sacrifice, your time with your family.
Yeah.
You might something will There's another analogy that I'll use here, which again is something that people talk about, right? It's called the four burner theory. You can read up about that. I was reading about it recently, but the idea is that the four burners, it's a gas stove, right? Like, look at your gas stove with four burners. There's work, family, career, and something else, right? Like, it's these four different parts of your life. Imagine if you're cooking on the stove and all four burners are in full, you will set your house on fire, right? But if you have to control the flame and the intensity for you to have balance, right? So I feel like that's like, there's so much value given to hustle culture today, when you need to think of your whole life more holistically, right? Your health was the last of the burners, right? So sort of, how do you make sure that you're looking out for all aspects, not just chasing money or chasing immediate success? We're in a world of so many young founders, so many 30 under 30s, all of that. But what happens after? How do you build your future? I think that's what people don't value enough, right? It's boring. It's the cliched old way of doing something. And I think that I actually like that life. And I feel like that's something that people should give a little more importance to as well.
Who is the most impressive person you have ever met?
So it's a tough one. I think this will probably be a bit of a cliched answer. But for me, I think the person that I've been most impressed with, and I'm also a fan of, would be Shah Rukh Khan. And I think the reason I say this is I've met him twice or twice in my career.
Oh my God.
Once very, very early in my career, and once much later in my career. And what I really had respect for is somebody at that stage, whether I'm, this early stage journalist, has treated me with the same level of respect while being who he is. And exactly the same, at a later stage when you're now a more senior person in the industry, right? And I think that to me was really impressive, right? The fact that your behavior is the same to a spot boy, to an intern, to a budding journalist, to a marketing head, right? And I think that was something that I really admired about him. I think the other is he's an incredible marketing mind, right? When I met him the first time was around when IPL was starting, right? It was KKR and they were building it out and all of that. And the vision that he had for how this team was going to shape up and what it was going to look like from a brand perspective, I think was really interesting. I think he's built an amazing brand for himself as a persona and a superstar. I think he's got a very strong vision on how any film or show he's associated with is promoted. And any brand that he works with, he sort of has a direction of what will make it stand out. And I think that is super impressive. And, at the end of the day, we've all loved his movies from, the romantic DDLJ kind of days. But now you're seeing him as this massive action superhero, right? And if he can reinvent himself at this stage, anyone can build that kind of thing for themselves as well. So, yeah, I'm a fangirl.
No, I mean, I can relate to it. Like, from the childhood, like, we have seen Shah Rukh Khan from DDLJ, from Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. I've seen those, like, we have grown up in those childhood memories. Like, me and my sister have watched those movies on, like, binge watched those movies on TV. We really waited for them, ki kab aane wali hai and all. And really loved his charm. And I can see, like, how he has grown himself. Like, I think most of the people, I can say, I do not want to only mention actor space or artist space, but people who make them relevant in every point of time, they really get the like kind of success and get those kind of love from the audience. Like Shah Rukh Khan make him relevance to the current audience also. So coming to the next question, Tara, like if your all content, all podcasts from the internet get erased and you have next 60 seconds to leave something for this world, what you gonna believe?
I'm actually good with that. Like in some ways, I would be so happy to get to reinvent myself from zero. It would suddenly feel like you have this blank canvas to start from, right? So I would actually not do anything in a rush. You probably realize that as a theme with me, right? Like I'm not somebody who's going to do something without putting a thought towards it, because I think if I do it in a rush, I will be nervous, I'll be anxious, and I will not present myself in the way I would like to. But I would really be excited by the opportunity of having a cleanse, like a digital cleanse. That would be super cool. I would actually be excited by that opportunity.
Uh, Tara, last question we have. What is the best piece of advice you have ever get? And from whom?
The best piece of advice I've gotten, and I've heard this from several people, but I think and that particularly made a lot of sense for me from a corporate job perspective, right? And the idea is that when you get an opportunity, whatever the opportunity is, you shouldn't look at it from that 6 month, 1 year lens, right? You have to look at it from how it's going to impact your life 5 years from now, right? So, in that whole question that you asked me about making $1 million in 6 months, right? How is that going to serve me 5 years later? In 5 years, will that $1 million I made be worth where I see my life going the next 5 years? I don't know, right? If I've not spent the time to think about it. The same thing can work from a job perspective, right? Which is if I get an offer tomorrow for another job and they're giving me X% hike on my salary, it might on paper look good. It might look like a good deal. But what if that's a company that after that does terrible increments later on, or is a very toxic work culture, or reduces my work life balance, or doesn't have the same level of growth? Maybe then I'm better at the company right now, which is paying me X amount of increments per year and has X scope of growth for me going ahead, right? So um, the reason this was really good advice for me is for the longest time I used to look at everything as, you know, 1 day at a time. What's my next month looking like? What's the next year going to look like? And you're like, 5 years, who's thinking about that? But 5 years is a really short period of time. I mean, it feels like the COVID pandemic was yesterday. That's already 5 years ago, right? So I think that a 5 year horizon is not the most difficult lens to have, but it gives you so much more perspective. And that's really done well for me from the way I look at things, both work wise and personally.
Okay, so this is a question that we will place in between. But with the rise of content creation, we have seen AI is taking over a lot. And I can see whenever something is getting so much of commoditized, it is becoming so saturated. Ki matlab, content maybe if you see, there's a lot of AI contents coming out right there.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if everybody have access to create that kind of content, then what kind of content really works it out? So how do you see this AI thing coming out into the content creation, how it is going to affect into the next 5 years?
Um, I honestly don't know, right, where it's going to go 5 years from now, right? It's a hard one to talk about. I think that it's it is the next revolution, right? It is sort of where technology is going. So whether we like it or not, there's a level of needing to embrace the technology and understand how it works. I think right now it's being used from a very surface level perspective, right? People are using it to like write their LinkedIn posts or create a social media asset. I think that the world needs to become smarter with how they utilize the tool, right? And that's where the differentiator will come in. It's not just about, hey, I want to replace content and it's becoming cheap and we're losing quality content creation out there. I think the creators that use it well or use it to make them more efficient all of these other things will see probably more success. But it's very hard to say, like rules, regulations, all of those things are going to keep changing, right? There was a lot of issues around IP and taking artistic freedom away, and those have already started to get resolved. And we'll keep on seeing patterns of that cropping up, right? YouTube had this whole rule of you can't monetize if you're using AI content. There's all of these things that will keep on working to benefit real people because, AI is a tool. It's not, going to replace anybody. So I think that that's something we'll have to just wait and watch.
Interesting. Glad to have you on the podcast, Tara. I mean, it was a really good conversation. Like, it was personally my masterclass for a marketing. So I think our audience will really love you. Like, there's a lot of people who really loves you, but do not able to say directly to you. But yeah,
You're
I mean,
too kind.
I mean, you are a kind of famous in this whole marketing industry. Like, whenever I talk, I give your example. Like in our company also, like when we build like marketing strategies and all, we really see like how Tara is doing. How if she was there, like how she's gonna do. So yeah, I mean, thank you for coming on the podcast.
You're making me blush right at the end. I'm going to look like my cup.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Yeah.